They say the ocean is healing, that its tides soothe the restless mind. Its rhythm reminds us that life goes on, no matter how tangled, no matter how deep. Beneath the surface, there is silence. And in that silence, a kind of trust between man and sea, between life and the unknown. But the ocean is not just a place of peace. It is ancient, wild, and sometimes even the gentlest rescue becomes a fatal gamble. For those who dare to step into its world, who devote their lives to untangling its suffering, the sea does not always say thank you. One man gave everything to the creatures he tried to save, but on one July morning, the ocean gave something back, and it came like a thunderclap. If you believe stories like this need to be told, true accounts of courage, nature, and the unexpected, then hit the like button, subscribe, and share this video. Because some heroes never make the headlines, but their stories should never be forgotten. Now let's begin with the moment it all went wrong. There are people who don't seek the spotlight, who wake before dawn, cast lines in silence, and return home salt-stained and steady. Joe Howlett was one of them. He was a lobsterman by trade, but a guardian by calling. The kind of man who knew every knot by feel, every current by instinct. To most, the sea was work. To Joe, it was responsibility. He had no formal training in marine biology, no titles, no degrees, just time, experience, and an unwavering sense that he could help. In the early 2000s, Joe co-founded the Campobello Whale Rescue Team, a group of fishermen turned protectors, risking their lives to free whales entangled in the very gear they once hauled themselves. North Atlantic right whales can't always escape. They carry these entanglements for weeks, months, starving, suffering, and people like Joe were their last hope. For over 15 years, Joe answered the call. From calm seas to churning gray storms, he went where the cries came from, even if the cries were silent. But the ocean is a force no rope can hold forever. And the deeper his mission took him, the closer he moved toward a moment no one saw coming. We follow the trail to the Gulf of St. Lawrence, to a whale, a call for help, and a rescue that would never be forgotten. The ocean holds giants, ancient, fragile, and vanishing. Among them, the North Atlantic right whale, a creature older than the nations that now border its waters and more endangered than most people realize. There are fewer than 350 left alive, and nearly all of them bear the same marks: ropes, nets, and scars that tell the story of a silent struggle. Marine experts said, these lines don't just wrap around fins or flukes, they cinch into bone. Whales drag them for miles, sometimes for months. They can't feed. They can't surface properly. Some slowly drown. To save a whale, you have to come close. Too close. These are animals the size of city buses, frightened, wounded, and fighting for their lives. Even a flick of a tail can be deadly. Joe Howlett had seen it all. Lines twisted around mouths and blowholes, flukes bound like fists. In every case, one wrong move could mean disaster for the whale or the rescuer. It wasn't just skill, it was instinct. He knew how to read the water, to feel the moment when the whale would surge or spin. But even with experience, you're always one heartbeat away from chaos. Every rescue is a race between breath and entanglement, between trust and instinct, between life and something else. Marine scientists said, we're losing these whales faster than we can protect them. And yet people like Joe, they kept showing up. And so on July 10th, 2017, when the call came again of another whale in trouble, Joe didn't hesitate. What followed would become the most haunting rescue of his life. It was a Monday morning, July 10th, 2017. The sea was restless, the sky overcast, and somewhere beyond the surf, a whale was in trouble. The call came in early. An entangled North Atlantic right whale had been spotted drifting in the Gulf. Its identification tag, number 4123. One expert said, right away we knew it was serious. The whale was heavily wrapped, breathing irregularly. Every minute it stayed that way, its chance of survival dropped. Joe volunteered. No hesitation, no pause. He always said the ocean gives you what you give it. And on that day, he gave it everything. The Gulf of St. Lawrence is wide and wild, its surface deceiving, flat in some places, angry in others, and beneath a vast wilderness teeming with life and peril. Teammates said, "Joe was calm. He always was. He didn't rush, didn't talk more than needed. He just kept looking at the lines, then out at the water like he already knew what was coming." What they were heading toward was not just a whale. It was a moment waiting to unfold, a collision of instinct and unpredictability. And once they found the animal, there would be no going back. They had done this many times before. But this whale, this mission, would not end like the others. Ahead was the final cut, the last moment of calm before everything changed. The sea holds its breath, a life hangs in the balance, and fate begins to tighten its invisible line. They found him just after noon. Whale, year 4123, a mature male North Atlantic right whale, one of fewer than 500 left in the world. Rescue team members said, "It was a mess of gear, trap lines, buoys. You could see it had been there a long time. The whale was exhausted. He barely moved." This was the part Joe excelled at. He knew how to read tension, not just in ropes, but in the animal itself. A whale that large can weigh over 60 tons. One wrong move, and everything changes. Joe went in for the final cut. That was always his move, the last slice that freed the whale. And then, it was over. The whale was free. One rescue team member narrated with his voice shaking. "It happened in seconds, a tail strike, like the crack of a tree falling. I saw Joe go down. No aggression, no warning, only raw instinct, a reflex born of panic, fear, and confusion." And the radio operator made the call.
"This is Campobello team. Injury on board, serious head trauma, requesting immediate medevac."
The whale vanished into the deep, free at last, and Joe lay still on the deck. What began as a rescue ended as a tragedy. In the eyes of the team, Joe had saved a life, but the sea had taken something in return. The moment Joe makes the final cut, a hush blankets the ocean. The ropes that once held the whale fall slack. The massive creature, finally free, surges forward with explosive power, a final thrash of its enormous tail slicing the air like a guillotine. In that split second, the tail strikes Joe with devastating force. Chaos erupts aboard the small rescue vessel. A crew member screams. Another rushes to Joe's side as he collapses. The scene is frantic but surreal, like time itself has slowed. Blood on the deck. Radio static crackling as someone calls the Coast Guard. Voice trembling. CPR begins. They try everything, but it's clear. Joe is fading. By the time the rescue helicopter is overhead, it's too late. Joe Howlett, father, fisherman, hero, is gone. Taken not by malice, but by the very creature he saved. Frantic, heartbreaking, helpless. The emotional core collapses inward here. A sense of tragic irony hangs in the air. He freed the whale and in doing so gave his life. The pacing is sharp, breathless, and then still, a silence that speaks louder than screams. As the sun sets on the Gulf of St. Lawrence, word of Joe Howlett's death echoes far beyond the rolling waters. It travels swiftly, across docks, into homes, through research centers, and across borders. By nightfall, headlines flood the internet. Veteran whale rescuer killed saving entangled giant. A final act of courage. At the New England Aquarium, staff pause their work, some in tears. A quiet moment of silence is held at NOAA headquarters. In coastal towns across Canada and the US, flags are lowered, boats raise their horns. The man who once braved the sea to rescue life has now become part of its legend. Joe was a true friend to whales and a hero to all of us. New England Aquarium. He gave everything for the animals he loved. NOAA. A tragic loss. Joe's legacy will live on in every disentangled whale. Nidfo, Canada. Joe's death is not just a loss, It's a fracture in a global community of marine defenders. Yet in the morning, there's unity, a call to remember him not in tragedy, but in purpose. Somber, reverent, unifying. The tone softens but deepens. Grief becomes reflection. Joe is remembered not only as a man, but as a symbol of selflessness. Nature has taken, but humanity responds with honor. He gave whales a second chance, and in return, he gave us a reason to keep fighting for the wild. The sea holds many stories, but few as noble as this one. Joe Howlett didn't just rescue whales, he showed us what it means to give, fully, fearlessly, without asking anything in return. Joe Howlett's death would become more than a tragedy, it would become a turning point. He is now remembered not only for the hundreds of whales he helped free, but as the first person ever to die in the line of duty as part of the Atlantic Large Whale Disentanglement Network. In a profession built on courage, his passing was a brutal awakening to the unforgiving nature of the work. Within weeks, federal agencies like NOAA and Canada's Department of Fisheries and Oceans launched internal reviews. Safety briefings were rewritten. Rescue protocols, once built on muscle memory and instinct, were now reviewed with sharper scrutiny. Joe's name began appearing in training rooms across North America, his face quietly watching over the next generation of rescuers from framed photos and faded newspaper clippings. There's admiration, but there's also caution. Joe's legacy now lives at the crossroads of hope and danger. His story becomes both an inspiration and a warning. He didn't die in vain. He died reminding us that heroism doesn't erase danger, and that every life saved comes at a cost someone, somewhere, once paid. There are people who speak for the ocean, and then there are those who act. Joe Howlett acted, not with a camera, not with a lecture, but with a rope knife, a boat, and his belief that no creature should die tangled in our mistakes. The sea, once roaring with urgency, now lies still. The whale is gone, freed, alive, somewhere beyond the shelf where light fades and the deep begins. But the boat never returned the same. Joe Howlett didn't have to be there that day. He was a volunteer, a fisherman by trade, a protector by choice. He had already done enough, dozens of rescues, years of risk. But when the call came in, when another whale was reported dragging ropes across the ocean floor, he went, because Joe believed that no life, no matter how massive or wild, should suffer because of human carelessness. There are moments in life when we stand between suffering and survival, when action means danger, but doing nothing means living with a weight we cannot carry. Joe Howlett knew that moment, and he stepped forward. The ocean gave him peace, and in the end, it also took him. But even as the tide closed over that chapter, his story didn't end. It lives on in every trainee, every cut rope, every whale that breaks free and disappears into the blue. Then, the Atlantic Large Whale Disentanglement Network continues his mission, but the risks remain. And finally, to support safer whale rescue efforts. If this story moved you, share it. Let Joe's legacy ripple beyond this moment, so others may understand the risk, the sacrifice, and the love it takes to protect what's wild. Support the teams who carry on his work. Visit NOAA or your local conservation groups. Every voice matters. Every action counts. Share it, like, and subscribe for more true animal stories. Let the world know what's happening beneath the surface, and the cost of compassion in waters still ruled by silence.